The mansion was grand, imposing, but to Sophia Hawthorne, it felt more like a prison. From her balcony, she watched the New York City skyline, the lights pulsating like memories of everything she had sacrificed. She knew her life was about to change forever in just a few weeks. Ethan Prescott, her husband, was on the verge of closing the most important deal of his career. Little did he know that behind every success was her Sophia pulling the strings in a game he believed was entirely his own. No one, except her brother Alexander, knew that Sophia was a billionaire, the heir to a global corporate empire. When she met Ethan, he was a dreamer struggling to keep his small business afloat, with ambitions far bigger than his reality allowed. He didn't know who she really was, and Sophia decided to keep it that way, captivated by his humility and determination. But she couldn't ignore her desire to help him. Through one of her companies, she created opportunities for Ethan's business to thrive, providing million-dollar contracts he believed were just luck or recognition of his talent. Now, pregnant with their first child, Sophia was eager to tell him the truth. She planned to wait until Ethan signed the deal with her company, the biggest of his life, before revealing everything. That she had always been in the background, believing in him more than anyone else. "Mrs. Prescott, dinner is served," one of the staff announced, breaking her train of thought. She went downstairs to join the dinner, where Victoria Prescott, her mother-in-law, was already seated, impeccably dressed as always. Victoria had never hidden her disdain for Sophia, convinced she was nothing more than a gold digger. "You seem distracted today, Sophia. Is something wrong? Or maybe you're worried about footing the bill for dinner," Victoria quipped with a cold smile. Sophia didn't respond. She knew arguing with Victoria was pointless. Ethan arrived shortly after, kissing her forehead. "I've got great news," he said excitedly. "We're just days away from closing the deal with Prescott Enterprises." Sophia smiled, but her heart felt heavy. He had no idea that Prescott Enterprises was one of the many companies in her empire. Ethan spoke with such pride that she feared how he would react upon learning his wife had been behind it all. Over the following days, Sophia focused on finalizing the deal while keeping her discreet routine. One of her most important tasks was attending her medical appointments, a secret she kept even from Ethan and his family. Only Alexander knew about the pregnancy. He was her confidant, the only one who truly understood the weight of her silence. "How much longer are you going to keep this from him?" Alexander asked as he drove her to an appointment. "Just until the deal is signed," Sophia replied. "I want him to know everything at once. I want him to see that my love for him has never been about money or status." At the clinic, Sophia felt at peace. The ultrasound confirmed the baby was healthy. She smiled as she heard the tiny heartbeat, imagining the moment when she and Ethan could share the joy together. But everything changed the following week. Sophia arrived at the clinic for another checkup, this time alone. While waiting in the lobby, her eyes caught something that made her heart stop. Ethan was there, standing beside Isabella Sinclair, his ex-girlfriend. Isabella looked radiant, her pregnancy evident, and Ethan stood next to her with a concerned expression. Sophia tried to keep her composure, but her world felt like it was falling apart. She hadn't known Ethan was still in contact with Isabella, and now, seeing him at a prenatal appointment with her was too much. Just as she turned to leave, she heard Isabella laugh and say loudly, "Do you think your wife will accept this? Poor thing, she doesn't even know the baby is yours. The story is just beginning, but you can already feel the intrigue, right? If you were Sophia, what would you do after hearing something so devastating? Share your thoughts in the comments, And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to keep following this thrilling story. Sophia left the clinic with quick, trembling steps, Isabella's words echoing in her mind like a sentence of betrayal. Poor thing. She doesn't even know the baby is yours. Each syllable felt like a blow. She got into her car and tried to take a deep breath, but the tears began to fall before she could even start the engine. The image of Ethan beside Isabella, the concern in his eyes, his hand resting on his ex-girlfriend's shoulder, it all pointed to a truth Sophia didn't want to accept. What if he never really loved me? She gripped the steering wheel, feeling a wave of nausea and despair. How could he be hiding something so big from her? She had always believed their marriage was built on trust and love, despite the judgment and humiliation she endured from his family. But now, with that scene seared into her memory, the ground beneath her felt like it was crumbling. That night, Sophia returned to the mansion she shared with Ethan, but she could barely look at him. He was in the living room, reading some documents, oblivious to the storm of emotions she carried. "Sophia, are you okay?" he asked, glancing up at her. "Yes, I just need to rest," she replied, avoiding eye contact. She quickly went upstairs before he could hear the tremor in her voice. Locking the bedroom door, she called her brother, Alexander. "I need you here," she said, her voice shaky and choked. "Sophia, what's wrong?" Alexander asked, concerned. "Just come. Now." The next morning, as Ethan left for work, Sophia went downstairs and found Victoria Prescott already in the living room, her usual coffee in hand and that condescending look on her face. "Good morning, Sophia," Victoria said in her dry tone. "You don't look well. Is something wrong? Or is my son's money not shining bright enough for you?" Normally patient, Sophia couldn't hold back. "At least I never needed to manipulate people to be accepted," she retorted, her voice laced with bitterness. Victoria laughed, but it wasn't a light laugh, it was cold, almost cruel. "You know, Sophia, I've always thought Ethan deserved someone better, someone who wasn't so invisible. I don't know how he doesn't see it. Maybe he does, but is too proud to admit it." The tension between them escalated, and Sophia felt her body respond to the stress. A sharp pain shot through her abdomen, forcing her to lean against the wall. "Are you all right?" Victoria asked, but there was no genuine concern in her voice. Sophia tried to respond, but another wave of pain brought her to her knees. Her heart raced as she realized something was wrong with the baby. Hours later, Sophia sat on a hospital bed, staring blankly. The doctor had confirmed the worst. She had lost the baby. Alexander was by her side, holding her hand. "Sophia, let's go home." "To our home," he said firmly. She nodded, still dazed. When they returned to the mansion, Ethan wasn't home yet. Sophia couldn't face him now, not with the doubts eating away at her heart and the physical and emotional pain she carried. She began packing her belongings, ignoring the curious looks from the staff. When Alexander arrived with one of her luxury cars, Sophia walked down the stairs with her head held high, though her face bore the weight of sadness. Victoria was in the living room, wearing a smug smile. "Oh, so you've decided to leave? Since you didn't get what you wanted, you're abandoning my son." Sophia didn't respond. She walked past her mother-in-law with icy silence. But Victoria, unable to hold her tongue, continued. "Of course you're leaving. That's the problem with people like you. No roots, no class, nothing to offer but a pretty face. What did you expect? That we'd pity you?" Sophia turned to look directly into Victoria's eyes. Her expression was cold, as if the mask of fragility had finally fallen. Remember this, Victoria. What you see in me today will change. And when it does, you'll be the first to realize how wrong you were." With that, she walked out the front door, leaving Victoria and the staff speechless as she stepped into Alexander's car, a rare, exclusive model, a symbol of a status no one there could have imagined she possessed. In the days that followed, Sophia disappeared entirely. Ethan tried calling her repeatedly, but she never answered. He sought information from friends and even from Victoria, who just shrugged and said, "She's been unstable from the start." "Honestly, Ethan, I think you're lucky to be rid of her before she caused more damage." Ethan didn't believe her, but doubt began to creep into his mind. Why had Sophia left like that? Could his mother have been right all along? Meanwhile, Sophia was at her private countryside estate, with Alexander by her side. There, she allowed herself to grieve. She cried for the loss of her baby and the pain of imagining that Ethan might have betrayed her. But as the weeks passed, something within her shifted. "It's over, Sophia," Alexander said one evening as they sat on the veranda. "You've been through it. Now, what's next?" She looked at him, her eyes filled with determination. "I'm coming back, but on my terms. And when I do, no one, absolutely no one, will ever humiliate me again." Stay tuned to find out what Sophia will do next. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to follow this story and many others just as thrilling. Days had turned into weeks since Sophia disappeared from Ethan's life and his family's. For him, the silence was deafening. Every unanswered call, every ignored message, was a painful reminder of the void she left behind. Even when he was surrounded by coworkers or buried in contracts and meetings, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that something was deeply wrong. He searched for answers. The reason for her departure seemed veiled, hidden behind something no one, not even his mother, Victoria, seemed willing to explain. "You need to move on, Ethan," Victoria would say. "Sophia was never the right kind of woman for you. It's time to accept that and focus on the future." But Ethan couldn't believe that. He remembered every smile, every moment with Sophia. She wouldn't do this without a reason. While Ethan wrestled with doubts and longing, Sophia was in an entirely different place, not just physically, but emotionally. In her secluded countryside estate, Sophia spent her days in silence, organizing her thoughts and deciding on her next move. The pain of losing her baby was still an open wound, but her grief had begun to give way to something stronger, an unyielding determination. In the main room, she and Alexander sat around a glass table scattered with documents and charts. "Are you ready for this?" Alexander asked. "More than ever," Sophia replied, without hesitation. She held a sheet detailing the upcoming signing event for Prescott Enterprises, the event where Ethan would be present. That night would mark the moment everything changed. "I've spent too much time hiding," Sophia continued. "It's time they know who I really am, especially Victoria and Isabella." Alexander smirked, proud of his sister's resolve. "Then let's do this the right way. And, Sophia, don't be afraid to show them exactly who you are." Preparations for the event were in full swing, both on the business side and in Sophia's personal life. With each passing day, her confidence grew. Her stylist was crafting a custom gown, blending elegance and power. She wanted her presence that night to be unforgettable. At the same time, Sophia meticulously reviewed the details of the contract with her lawyers. Though the deal was practically secured, she knew she needed to be seen as more than just a mysterious CEO. She needed to project presence and strength. She needed everyone to see her as not only a billionaire but a woman fully in control of her life once more. Ethan, on the other hand, was preparing for the event with a mix of excitement and melancholy. He believed the contract would be the pinnacle of his career, but without Sophia by his side, the achievement felt hollow. "You're worrying too much," a colleague remarked as they adjusted their ties in the dressing room. "It's the biggest day of my professional life," Ethan replied with a forced smile. "And yet it seems like you've lost everything." Ethan didn't respond, but the words struck a nerve. He ran his fingers over his tie knot and sighed, trying to push away the ache he had carried since Sophia left. The night of the event arrived, and the reception hall of the hotel was stunning. Glittering chandeliers reflected off golden mirrors, and guests wore their finest attire, as if each were competing to appear wealthier and more influential. Victoria, of course, was in her element. She moved among the guests, whispering about the mysterious CEO of Prescott Enterprises while also taking the opportunity to make disparaging remarks about Sophia. "She disappeared, just as I expected," Victoria told a group of friends. "I always knew she couldn't handle the pressure. A woman like her has no place among people of our stature." In a corner of the room, Isabella observed with a malicious smile. She seemed completely at ease, as if convinced Sophia would never return. "Looks like Ethan is finally free," Isabella commented as she passed Victoria. "Free to find someone more suitable," Victoria replied, a satisfied glint in her eyes. Meanwhile, near the entrance of the hall, a stir began. Guests turned their heads toward the doorway as an elegant figure appeared. Sophia Hawthorne entered, wearing a floor-length black gown that looked as though it had been designed for a queen. Her posture was impeccable, and her presence seemed to command the room. The whispers started. "Who is she? Why is she here?" Victoria was the first to react, her expression freezing in disbelief. "Sophia?" she whispered, stunned, before quickly composing herself. She marched toward Sophia with determined steps, intent on removing her. "You have no business being here," Victoria said, trying to keep her voice low but laced with disdain. Before Sophia could respond, Isabella approached, adding fuel to the fire. "What a surprise," Isabella said with a venomous smile. "Here to witness Ethan's success? Or to beg him to take you back?" Sophia held her composure, her gaze cold and unshaken. "I'm here for the contract," she said enigmatically. Victoria laughed. "You? Shouldn't you be asking to be invited? Because you certainly don't belong here." Before they could say anything more, the room's attention shifted again. Alexander entered, followed by a group of staff members wearing uniforms bearing the Prescott Enterprises logo. He stopped beside Sophia and spoke loudly, his voice carrying across the room. "Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce the true force behind Prescott Enterprises. My sister, Sophia Hawthorne, CEO and founder of the company that is closing this monumental deal tonight." The entire hall fell into stunned silence. Victoria turned pale, and Isabella looked as though she couldn't process what she had just heard. Ethan froze, his mind reeling with the revelations. Sophia stepped forward, a small smile playing on her lips, ready to reveal herself fully at last. The room remained silent for a few seconds, but it felt like an eternity. Sophia took a step forward, allowing the weight of her revelation to settle in the minds of everyone present. Her eyes locked with Ethan's, who was still frozen, unable to process what he had just heard. Alexander, standing beside her, maintained a confident posture, knowing this moment was entirely for his sister. "Good evening, everyone," Sophia began, her calm and steady voice cutting through the silence. I know many of you must be surprised to see me here tonight, but I want to assure you that I am exactly where I'm meant to be." She looked directly at Victoria, whose face was a mix of disbelief and embarrassment. "As CEO of Prescott Enterprises, I would like to congratulate everyone on this monumental collaboration," she continued, casting a quick glance at Ethan. "And, of course, express my gratitude to everyone who made this possible." A murmur began to spread among the guests. Everyone wondered how no one had realized that Sophia was the mysterious CEO. Ethan finally found his voice. "Sophia, what does this mean? You're—" Sophia stared at him, her expression a mixture of determination and hurt. "Yes, Ethan," she said calmly. "I am the CEO of Prescott Enterprises, and for a long time, I have been helping your company grow. From the very beginning." Ethan took a step forward, confusion turning into something closer to anger. "You're saying that all my success, everything I've built, was you?" Sophia maintained her composure, but her voice trembled with emotion. "I never did this to take credit for your achievements, Ethan. I did it because I believed in you. I believed in us. When I met you, I saw a man with potential, with dreams, but without the opportunities he deserved. I wanted to be that bridge." He ran his hands through his hair, clearly shaken. "You lied to me," he said, his voice low. "All this time you lied. You never told me who you really were, what you were doing. How did you expect me to trust you after that?" Sophia felt tears threatening to fall, but she refused to break down. "And you?" she countered. "How did you expect me to trust you after what I saw at the clinic?" Ethan froze, surprised by the accusation. "What are you talking about?" Sophia took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "I saw you with Isabella. I saw you with her at a prenatal appointment, Ethan. I saw how you were with her, as if you were the father of her child." Ethan blinked, confused. "You think that?" He shook his head. "No, Sophia, that's not it. I was there because Isabella asked for my help. She doesn't have anyone. She told me the baby isn't mine. And you believed her?" Sophia shot back, her voice full of hurt. "How can I believe you if you didn't even have the courage to tell me about this before?" The tension between them was palpable, but before they could continue, Victoria intervened. "Enough," she said, her voice sharp. "You think you can walk in here after disappearing and pretend to have some moral authority? All you've done is manipulate my son, and now you want us all to applaud you." Sophia turned to Victoria, her patience finally running out. "Manipulate," she said, laughing without humor. "What do you know about manipulation, Victoria? All you do is try to control Ethan's life and humiliate anyone you think isn't worthy of your family." Victoria flushed red, but before she could respond, Sophia continued. "I never asked to be judged by you or anyone else, but you've judged me from day one, without knowing anything about me." She took a step forward, now standing directly in front of Victoria. "Now know this. Without me, Ethan wouldn't be where he is. Without me, half the businesses that sustain this family wouldn't even exist. And yet, you chose to see me as an opportunist. Well, now you know who I really am, and you can keep your opinion to yourself." Victoria stood stunned, but before she could say anything, Ethan intervened. "Mom, enough," he said, his voice firm. Victoria turned to him, surprised. "Ethan, you can't be serious. This woman," he interrupted her, "is the only one who truly believed in me, who did for me what no one else did. You, on the other hand, spent all your time trying to destroy our marriage. And now I see just how wrong you were." Victoria seemed about to respond, but Ethan cut her off with a look. He then turned to Sophia. "Sophia, I don't know what to say," he began, his voice softer. "I'm confused, I'm hurt, but I also know that deep down, you did all of this because you believed in me. I just wish you had trusted me enough to tell me earlier." Sophia hesitated, her tears finally falling. "I was afraid, Ethan. Afraid that you'd see my money before you saw my love. And then, when I found out about Isabella, I thought there was no us left to protect." Ethan stepped forward, his expression now more open. "I never wanted you to think that. Isabella means nothing to me. I only wanted to help someone in need. But you've always been the one." The silence in the room was heavy, but filled with anticipation. Finally, Ethan took Sophia's hand. "You've always been by my side. I just didn't know it," he said. Sophia took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the past few weeks begin to lift. "And I always will, Ethan, but only if you accept all of me. The love, the support, and the truth." He nodded, squeezing her hand. "I accept." The reconciliation between Sophia and Ethan was the first step toward healing the wounds that had created a chasm between them. However, the revelations of that night also brought to light new challenges. For Victoria, the public humiliation was unbearable. Isabella, on the other hand, felt defeated but was still intent on causing harm. Both now saw Sophia as an enemy to be eliminated, each with her own motivation. As Ethan and Sophia tried to rebuild their relationship, a new threat emerged on the horizon, this time coming from outside, but with dangerous ties within the Prescott family. Days after the event, Ethan sought out Sophia at her country estate, determined to leave no more doubts between them. When he arrived, he found her in the garden, surrounded by papers and documents related to Prescott Enterprises. "You never stop, do you?" Ethan joked, trying to lighten the tension that still lingered between them. Sophia looked up at him, her eyes still carrying the weight of the recent events, but a small smile appeared on her lips. "Some of us don't have the luxury of ignoring problems," she replied softly, indicating that there were still loose ends to tie up. Ethan sat down beside her. "I want to help," he said, his voice full of sincerity. Sophia sighed, setting the papers aside. "If you really want to help, then you need to understand that, from now on, things are going to be different. I won't hide who I am anymore, Ethan. If we're going to move forward together, it has to be as equals." He nodded, taking her hand. "I accept that. I accept you, Sophia, completely. I just want us to get through this together." While Sophia and Ethan were rebuilding their relationship, an external threat began to take shape. One of Sophia's competitors, Gregory Hale, had long harbored a grudge against Prescott Enterprises. He believed that Sophia had sabotaged his negotiations years earlier, a misunderstanding fueled by rumors planted by Victoria to protect Ethan's reputation. Gregory now saw the recent instability between Sophia and the Prescott family as an opportunity for revenge. He began to plot an attack, both personal and professional, aimed at destroying Sophia. Victoria, bitter from how Ethan had confronted her, saw in Gregory an ally. In a private meeting, she encouraged him to take action against Sophia without concern for the consequences. "She destroyed my family," Victoria said, her voice dripping with venom. "I just want her to disappear from our lives." Days later, Sophia began receiving anonymous threats. Messages on her phone and notes delivered to her office made it clear that someone was trying to intimidate her. Ethan immediately became concerned, but Sophia, as always, tried to stay calm. "This is part of the business," she said. "There's always someone who can't accept losing, But Ethan knew it was more than that. He could sense the impending danger, and it made him uneasy. That night, while they were at home, Sophia received a call from Alexander. "We need to increase security," he said, his voice serious. "I've received information that Gregory Hale is behind these threats. He has dangerous connections, Sophia. We can't ignore this." Sophia hesitated but agreed to reinforce her security. Despite the precautions, Gregory was determined. A week later, during a business meeting at a luxury hotel, Sophia became the target of a direct attack. A man, disguised as an employee, attempted to force her into a car in the hotel parking lot. Sophia fought back, but it was Ethan who arrived just in time to save her. He confronted the assailant, even at the risk of his own life. During the struggle, Ethan was gravely injured but managed to subdue the man until security arrived. Sophia, terrified and full of guilt, stayed by Ethan's side as he was taken to the hospital. "I shouldn't have involved you in this," she said, tears streaming down her face. Ethan, despite being weakened by pain, held her hand. "You didn't involve me. I chose to be here, and I always will, Sophia. Always." After the attack, Alexander used his influence to investigate Gregory and expose his connections. He uncovered not only Gregory's intentions but also Victoria's involvement. When the news reached Ethan, he was devastated. He visited his mother, demanding answers. "You knew he was dangerous," Ethan said, his voice filled with anger. "And still, you encouraged him to go after her?" Victoria tried to justify herself. "I did it for you," she said. "She was controlling you, Ethan. Didn't you see that?" "No, Mother," he replied, his voice cold. "She supported me. She believed in me when no one else did. And now I know who was really trying to control me, you." He left, leaving Victoria alone, with tears of humiliation streaming down her face. While Ethan recovered in the hospital, Sophia stayed by his side. She cared for him with a devotion that reflected the depth of her love. "You risked everything for me," she said, holding his hand as he rested. "Because you're worth it," Ethan replied. "And you always will be." The two of them promised never again to let misunderstandings or secrets pull them apart. Sophia decided to use the incident to further strengthen her position. She organized a press conference where she revealed the threats she had received and announced a strategic restructuring within her company to ensure that something like this would never happen again. At the same time, she and Ethan began planning a new vow renewal ceremony as a symbol of their fresh start. The air was heavy in the hall where Sophia had called the press conference. Journalists from across the country were eager to hear the CEO of Prescott Enterprises address the recent scandals involving threats to her life and the involvement of competitor Gregory Hale. The tension was palpable, but Sophia, now more confident than ever, was ready to take control of her narrative. Dressed in an elegant white suit that radiated power and serenity, she took the stage accompanied by Alexander and Ethan. "Good afternoon," she began, her voice firm. "In recent months, my personal and professional life has faced attacks that jeopardized not only my safety, but also the integrity of our company. I am here to clarify the facts and assure everyone that no one, absolutely no one, will stop us from continuing to grow." The room remained silent as Sophia detailed Gregory Hale's actions and his connections, revealing documents that proved his attempts to sabotage her. But it was the moment she mentioned Victoria Prescott's name that made everyone hold their breath. Unfortunately, some of these actions were aided by people we trusted. Despite the pain of this betrayal, I choose to move forward, knowing that the truth will always prevail. Behind the scenes, Victoria watched the press conference at home, her face pale and lips tight. Although Sophia hadn't explicitly named her as an accomplice, everyone knew who she was referring to. When the conference ended, Victoria picked up the phone and called Ethan. "You're not going to allow this, are you?" she asked, her voice trembling with indignation. Ethan took a deep breath before responding. "I'm not going to do anything, Mom. You've already done it on your own. It's time for you to take responsibility for your choices." The call ended abruptly, and Victoria realized that, for the first time, Ethan wasn't on her side. After the press conference, Sophia and Ethan returned home, exhausted but relieved. Now that all the truths were out in the open, there were no more barriers between them. "That was brave, what you did today," Ethan said, holding Sophia's hand. "It was necessary," she replied. "For too long, I let others control the narrative about me. Now it's time for me to decide who I am." Ethan pulled her close, looking into her eyes. "And who are you?" Sophia smiled softly. "I'm your partner, Ethan, and I always will be." A month later, Sophia and Ethan organized an intimate ceremony to renew their vows. This time, there were no secrets between them, and every word spoken was filled with love and understanding. Alexander was Sophia's best man, while Ethan chose one of his friends who had remained loyal to him through all the tough times. In front of a small group of friends and allies, Sophia and Ethan promised to rebuild their future together. "Today, I promise to never hide anything from you again," Sophia said, "and I promise to be by your side in every moment as your equal." Ethan, with tears in his eyes, replied, "And today, I promise to never doubt you again, because you've always been the best part of me." As Sophia and Ethan moved forward with their lives, Gregory Hale was sued for his attempt to attack Sophia and the illegal practices revealed by Alexander. He was convicted, his reputation ruined, and his influence in business ended. Victoria, socially isolated, decided to retreat to the family's country house. While Ethan didn't completely cut ties with his mother, he made it clear that their relationship would never be the same. "I hope that one day you understand how much you hurt the people you loved," he said during his last visit. Victoria only nodded in silence as Ethan left. Months later, Sophia and Ethan received unexpected but extremely happy news. Sophia was pregnant again. The initial fear of losing another baby was overcome by Ethan's unwavering support, and he promised to stand by her every step of the way. In the epilogue, we see the couple in their home, now renewed and full of life. Ethan is working on new projects, while Sophia prepares to further expand her business, always with mutual partnership and support as the foundation of their lives. In the end, the camera focuses on a picture on the wall, a photo of the couple from their vow renewal ceremony, with the caption, "Together, we are stronger." The morning was sunny, and light streamed through the large window of the living room in Sophia and Ethan's home. The atmosphere was full of life, with fresh flowers in vases and the aroma of freshly brewed coffee filling the air. Sophia, now 6 months pregnant, was sitting on the sofa, reviewing the latest reports from her team, while Ethan prepared breakfast in the kitchen. There was a tranquility in their movements, as if they had finally found the balance they had been searching for. "You really need to stop working so much," Ethan teased, entering the room with a tray. Sophia looked up and smiled. "You know that's not possible," she replied, but closed her laptop and accepted the coffee he placed in front of her. As they shared a quiet meal, Ethan looked at her with a sparkle in his eyes, gently touching her belly. "I still can't believe it," he said. "After everything we've been through, being here with you, waiting for our baby. It's more than I could have dreamed." Sophia held his hand and smiled. "Me neither. But deep down, I always knew we'd find our way back." That same afternoon, Sophia and Alexander participated in a video conference with the Prescott Enterprises team. It was a special meeting to announce a new initiative, a foundation aimed at supporting young entrepreneurs without access to resources, just as Ethan had been years ago. "I believe success should not be a barrier, but a bridge," Sophia said during the presentation. "Our foundation will be that bridge for so many people who just need a chance." The announcement was met with applause, and Sophia felt a wave of pride. For so long, she had worked behind the scenes, but now she was fully in charge, leading with confidence and purpose. A few weeks later, while shopping with Ethan, they ran into Isabella at a cafe. She was alone, flipping through papers, looking distant. Sophia hesitated for a moment but decided to approach. "Isabella," she said, her voice gentle but firm. Isabella looked up, surprised to see them. "Sophia." "Ethan," she replied, a little uncomfortable. The silence that followed was heavy, but Sophia finally broke it. "I hope you find your way," she said without hostility, but also without the warmth she had once offered. Isabella simply nodded, visibly touched by the unexpected interaction. "I've already started looking," she replied. When Sophia and Ethan left, Ethan held Sophia's hand more firmly. "You're more generous than I am," he commented. "It's not generosity," she said. "It's the freedom that comes from knowing I'm not holding anything back. No grudges, no secrets." In a more remote part of the country, Victoria lived in the family's country house, spending her days in silence. She read the newspapers, following from a distance the growing success of Sophia and Ethan. Although it was still hard for her to admit her mistakes, something inside her began to change. One day, while organizing her things, Victoria found an old photo of Ethan and Sophia from their wedding. She ran her fingers over the image, remembering all she had said and done. "Maybe they're stronger than I thought," she whispered to herself. Though she didn't have the courage to reconcile directly, Victoria wrote a letter to Ethan, acknowledging her mistakes and wishing him and Sophia a happy life. Months later, Sophia and Ethan's home was full of life once again. This time, literally. The couple welcomed the arrival of their son, a boy named Benjamin. The birth was a moment of celebration, not just for them, but for everyone who had supported them along the way. Alexander, now officially the proud uncle, held Benjamin carefully, making promises to teach him everything about leadership and determination. "I can't wait to tell him how much his mom and dad fought to get here," Alexander said, smiling at Sophia. Ethan embraced Sophia from the side, watching his brother and the baby. "He'll have the best example," Ethan said, kissing Sophia's forehead. In the end, Sophia and Ethan sat together in the garden as the sunset painted the sky in shades of orange and pink. They watched Benjamin sleep peacefully in his crib nearby. "Do you think we've done everything right?" Ethan asked, almost in a whisper. Sophia looked at him with a serene smile on her face. "I think we've done what was necessary, and in the end, that's what brought us here. And that's all that matters." Ethan nodded, pulling her closer. The wind gently swayed the trees around them as the camera slowly pulled away, capturing the peace and love that, after so many struggles, they had finally found. In the corner of the screen, the final words appeared, "Because true love isn't perfect. It's resilient." This story shows us that often people judge by appearances, ignoring what lies behind the choices and sacrifices of each person. Sophia had to face humiliations, prejudices, and even painful losses to reconnect with her true strength and prove that love and resilience can overcome any obstacle. But the big question remains: how far would you go to protect those you love? This is a reflection that invites each of us to look at our own lives and think about the sacrifices we're willing to make for those who matter to us. If you enjoyed this story and want to follow more plots full of emotion, love, and twists, subscribe to the channel now. Hit the bell so you won't miss any chapters, and remember, the next story might be even more impactful. We're waiting for you.